Thank you, Aaron. I think that was a wonderful lead-in to my talk, and I hope that I can return the favor by providing a lead-in to your next talk. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about what the League's doing and what some of the resources we're trying to develop to further our planning. The motivations for this talk are to develop some planning support tools for the League's mission. The League's mission is to protect, restore, and connect people to the Redwood Forest. And so those are three disparate goals. And one thing we found is that our existing data and GIS tools weren't sort of sufficient for meeting that challenge. So we've taken the step of trying to develop some new data sources and some new tools to help us achieve those goals. We also want to develop some baselines for what the current condition of the forest is so that we can give ourselves grades, track our progress. And then we really needed some range-wide data sets. In particular, California has a lot of wonderful public data sets. They tend to stop at the border. The forest doesn't. So we really wanted to develop some tools and some resources that would provide us information about the Southern Oregon forests as well. So this is our project boundary. We work in both Giant Sequoia and Coast Redwood. Today I'm only going to talk about the Coast Redwoods, and there's that Southern Oregon bit. This is inclusive of both redwoods and their surrounding watersheds. We wanted to be sure we were capturing the local environment that was influencing the health of the forests. So we collected all the watersheds that were within a mile of a naturally occurring redwood stand using CalVeg and other data sources. And so our project boundary is approximately 8 million acres. So how many folks here are familiar with LEMA? Anyone? Okay. Okay, just a few of us here. So LEMA is a forestry data layer produced by some folks at, between the Pacific Northwest Lab and Oregon State University. It's a fantastic resource. I'm going to show you a little bit of what we've been able to do with it. It's a 30 meter by 30 meter data set of forest cover for the entire all the 3 highlighted states here. And it provides about 160 or so different data points about each one of those pixels, from basal area of any relevant species you can think of to trees per acre, QMD. And the way they've done that is they've taken satellite data, Landsat data, and the plot networks of the forest inventory and USDA, and they have 3,800 plots. Actually, the 3,800 is just in the region I'm going to be talking about. And they use those plots with the Landsat data, and they assign each 30 meter by 30 meter pixel one of those plots. So we basically have classified the forest into 3,800 different types of forest. And like I said, we have a bunch of different characteristics. This data set is freely available to download from their website. It's pretty easy to use. So first step for us is obviously 3,800 different classifications is a little too much for us to wrap our heads around. So we wanted to reduce down the complexity a little bit. And so for the particular project we were working on, we decided that it would be useful to have 4 different species classes. We wanted to make sure we captured as much of the redwood forest as possible. So any pixel that had more than 10% basal area in redwood, we call that a redwood pixel. If it doesn't have 10%, but it has 70% Doug fir, we'll call it a Doug fir pixel. And likewise down tan oak if it's 50% basal area, and the rest of it is the mixed conifer hardwood. And we also broke it into structure classes. This is important for a lot of the work we're thinking about, and this is our Jerry Franklin inspired set of age classes And we had to break these into forest structure information because satellites don't provide us age information, which is an important thing that I'm going to mention in just a minute here. So we developed, we were really interested in the earlier age classes in particular, so we broke out the biomass accumulation stage into 3 different categories, a maturation stage, and then what we're calling is a large complex forest. And something that internally in the league we might have referred to as an old growth forest in the past. Again, Landsat can't tell us how old the forest is. It can't tell us if it's been entered or not. It can only tell us whether it has some of the characteristics that are similar to other large complex forests. Moreover, as we go forward and the league works hard on its restoration strategies, we're not going to be achieving old growth in our lifetimes, but we're hoping to put the forest on a trajectory towards these large complex forests. And so this is just a little graphic key to describe that. The different species categories across the top, and then darker tones denote a higher forest structure class, and the highlighted class is the one that the league is most interested in, which is those large complex forests for redwood. And so this is what it looks like across the entire range. You can pretty easily, even from this way zoomed out level, pick out some of the bigger forests that you're familiar with, even on these blown out monitors a little bit. But let's zoom in on a geography that people might be a bit more familiar with. And so I'm sure those of you that are really familiar with these areas can probably find a few places where it doesn't quite meet your expectations. I'd love to hear about those, so come find me afterwards. But that's sort of inherent in working with these kind of data sets. If we want to think about the entire range, we're going to have to accept some issues. I think to my eye it looks pretty good. I'm curious to hear of other opinions. So in this range, like I said, about 8 million acres, 5.1 million are forested. And the way the folks at Lemma, they use the gap analysis to determine whether it's forested, non-forested. According to our classification, 1.6 million acres have more than 10% redwood basal area. And there are about 113,000 acres of large complex coast redwood forest, which is gratifying finding for us because that matches up vaguely with our previous data set regarding large redwood forests that had been developed by hand from stereographic imagery. There are ways in which the two data sets differ, but the final number was about the same. 75% of those large complex forests are in the northern counties. More than 20% is in the Bay Area. And really interesting to us is that nearly half of the forest is in just 14 complexes of over 1,000 acres. There are 14 complexes of large complex coast redwood forests that are more than 1,000 acres, and that's half. So another thing that we're really interested in is seeing who owns these forests in ways that we can divide it up. The league is really interested in the policy type that a particular geography belongs to. What can happen on that land? What are the restrictions? And we have a deep, confusing set of policy types. I boiled it down to just 4 here. For the moment, we'll ignore conservation easements and the like. And here's what we have. We have, in thousands of acres, find that, yeah, we've protected the biggest chunk of large complex forest is in protected lands. But also important to note is all those smaller redwood forest classes, there's a ton of it. It dominates the redwood forest in protected lands and elsewhere, which is really a call to action for us for our restoration work. Industrial lands have, and other private lands hold them, no surprise, hold the majority of the coast redwood forest, and a lot of that is in those earlier age classes. So, future directions. There's a lot to talk about here. As I talked about, we're going to ground truth the data. We know it has some problems. We're actually developing a next generation data layer that's a similar, that uses a different approach so we can compare. It'll be more up to date. The lemma data is from 2012. Some of the folks in this room have provided us with plot data to help us develop this next generation layer. If anybody has plot data that they haven't provided to us and would like to share it with us, I'd love to hear from you. We're also really interested in developing a better understanding of the relationship between site and stature. So we know that a forest of the same age on the southern part of the range is going to be a different size, different structure than in the northern part of the range, and likewise from the coast inland. We want to develop some ways that we can apply that understanding to the entire range so we can further enhance our structure classification so that we can place the forests where they belong in their trajectory. And then we're really interested in taking the next step and thinking about how different activities that we take or management decisions are going to affect the future forest structure and species composition. So we're really interested in thinking about ways that we can model these forests forward over the next 100 or 200 years. There are a lot of tools for modeling forest growth, but they tend to be more on the precision side, whereas we're talking about 8 million acres. So if folks have ideas for how we can think about what management decisions will affect at landscape scale, again, please come find me. I'm curious to hear those ideas. Okay, I'd love to thank some supporters. The Moore Foundation and the Bechtel Foundation have been very generous in their support of this project. This is a small piece of a much bigger project that the League is undertaking that they've funded. The lemma folks are very generous with both their time and their data. And then we've been working with some partners, NatureServe and Sylvia Terra, which we're working with to develop that next generation layer. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. Yeah. Yes.
For your next generation data layer, what do you do with history? Is it over to Landsat?
Yeah. So Sylvia Terra is the contractor that's doing that. They use a different approach. So Lemma works with every year of Landsat and FIA that they can match up. Sylvia Terra is working with the most recent imagery and more recent plots, but they don't classify it by the closest plot. They actually develop continuous pixel predictions throughout the entire range. So yeah, it should be current to 2016 Landsat. Yeah.
Is it correct to assume that all of these 14 large complexes are in public ownership?
So they're complexes. So most of them are, and let's see, I'm not sure I can state definitively, but many of them are partly protected, but not entirely protected, because the complexes don't pay attention to park boundaries. Yeah. Yes.
I'm interested in regions you identify. Have you considered having a data set of sequestered carbon and its value added to your analysis?
Yeah, we're really interested in developing ways that we can better understand how the forests are sequestering carbon across the entire range, and that's, you know, with a high quality species and structured data set, that is certainly an application that we're interested in figuring out more about, but we haven't made much progress down that road yet. Thank you.